of teaching. Okay, we are recording. So, um, metaphors and analogies described as the secret sauce of teaching, and that was by Dr. Barbara Oakley, who did a MOOC, a massive open online course called Learning How to Learn, and which is freely available, and you can take that. It's on the Coursera. The course was originally done for Stanford University, so you can go around and tell everybody you took a course at Stanford. But many fascinating things inside that course. But one of the things that I learned from that is the power of metaphors and analogy. So just using an example here that we see on the screen, life is a journey. But if we're teaching, if we can build on those things that students already know and plug in our new material, so much the better. Analogy, we're doing a comparison again to something that students may already know. Paper is as light as a feather, and that's pretty powerful. If you didn't know what paper was, it's already giving you, but you knew what if you knew what a feather was, that always going to tell you a lot about paper, that it doesn't weigh a whole lot, and building on that information that you already know. So anytime that we can use metaphors and analogies, um, take something new and build it on what a student already knows, a lot of the battle for new learning is going to be won because the students have that base in which to build. So metaphors and analogies are extremely sticky, and we'll see an example in a sample lesson here in just a minute. So speaking of which, so we did a social studies context last time. So I know science feels left out, and science says, well, Steve, why don't we do a lesson? Let's contextualize towards science. And so I'm going to just show you the intro of a lesson on kinetic versus potential energy. And what we want to do here, the big thing that we want to think about is, how is this sticky? What elements have we put in that makes this sticky? So as we do this, and again, please participate in the lesson, but always be thinking about, what is he doing that's making it sticky? How are we incorporating visuals? How are we incorporating videos? How are we doing metaphors? How are we doing analogies? All these things that we've talked about that make learning sticky. So are we ready for kinetic versus potential energy? So, oh, wait, this is the dreaded after lunch session. Oh man, we should stand up and do jumping jacks or something. With the time change, with me being Eastern time, I didn't think about that. But yeah, thanks a lot, Kim, for putting me in the session after lunch. But anyway, I'm sure this wasn't your purpose. It was just a flip of the coin or whatever. Okay. So anyway, so let's do a mini brief lesson on kinetic versus potential energy. And we're going to be thinking as we go through what sticky elements are in here. How is he trying to make this sticky? Are we ready? So everybody give me a thumbs up if we're ready to go. Okay. All right, very good. So here we go. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take a look at a video. And as we're watching, what I want you to do is to think about what you are about to see. Is it real or is it fake? Is it real or is it fake? And I want you to provide some evidence. So in other words, as we're thinking about this, we would say, it's real because I saw blah, blah, blah. Or we would want to say, this is fake because I didn't see blah, blah, blah. So we really want to think about what evidence that that backs up either whether it's real or whether it is fake. So let's see if we can go, and I want to make sure we share the sound here. Okay. But I'm not sure that I'm sharing the right thing. Okay, let's get rid of that. Are we seeing the slip and fly water jump? Okay. Are we seeing the video of the slip and fly water jump? Are we seeing the PowerPoint of the slip and fly water jump? People are saying, I'm not sure,
Video.
Steve. You've seen the video. Okay, good deal. So, what we want to do again, is this real? Is this fake? I will play it a couple times because it happens fast, but your mission is to see what evidence would lead you to believe that this is real or this is fake. Are we ready? Here we go. And I will play it a couple times. And if you can't hear the sound, it's no big deal, because the sound really doesn't play a big role in this. Okay, we'll stop it there, because it's just after that, just, congratulations and back slaps and woo. So, but we want to watch it again, because a lot happens in a short period of time. So again, as we're looking, real, fake, what evidence leads you to believe it's either real or if it's fake? Look at everything very carefully. I'm going to play it. I'll play it a total of 3 times. So this will be time number 2. So maybe look, if you looked at one thing, try to look at something else this time. All right, so we're going to do it one more time. Maybe we can notice something a little different this time. So again, real, is it fake? What evidence leads you to believe either way? Are we ready? This is the last time. So use both our eyeballs here. Here we go. All right, the chat box is lighting up, and that's the last time that we will show this. So is it real? Is it fake? And why? And again, please feel free to unmute if you're tired of typing. We can do it. We've had several folks here. Let's see. Stephanie says fake because you cannot see him hit at the end of the slip and slide, then get to the ramp, because you can't see him hit the end of this. Okay. I think Stephanie's saying, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, that you don't see him the whole time. Is that correct, Stephanie?
Absolutely.
Okay. There is part of the video in which he is obscured. Okay. Let's see. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Seeing as my kids have used their, what do you call that when you slide across the wire on the, up in the sky, whatever. They've done that and jumped into the pool, and I caught them doing it. And the pool moves. And that pool did not move at all. And it's only like, what, 3 foot deep?
So your kids have done some some hands-on
frequent flyers at the hospital, get me real.
With 3 boys, I'm sure you have. Yeah, I'm sure you have. You're like, oh, you're back. Hey, Kim, good to see you.
Kim, don't let your boys watch that video. Just saying.
Oh, they're so far past that.
I'll email it to him. Okay, so let's see. Megan says 2 buckets of water. That's not a thing. Yeah. Need more water. Okay, so let's see. But I'm wondering, Megan, maybe they put a lot on there to start with. I don't know. We'll see. But that's a good thought. That's a good thought. Let's see. Lynn says fake, not enough water. Okay, water's creating a theme. Tip says it's on the internet. So a lot of idiots will do stupid things. Yeah, it's got to be real, and it's brought a lot of it. It has indeed. Let's see. I don't believe the reaction of the jumper. Well, Telly, that is a very interesting thought. What would you think the jumper would be like if it were real? Would you mind unmuting and telling us that?
Yeah, of course. Excuse me. I just think that they would just be absolutely ecstatic jumping out of that pool, running around, screaming and hollering, and that I'm just not getting that sense of accomplishment and thrill from that big of a jump.
Thank
They're
you. And
probably pulling their
I'm with
suit
you.
out of their pants.
I'm sorry, say that again, Kim.
They were probably pulling their suit out of their.
I'm with you. I'm with you both. I would have been a lot more excited personally. Yeah, and the dummy laying on the grass, it's there in the picture, but I didn't see it in the video itself. But Heather, you were so kind to unmute during part A. What do you think the dummy means? Does that lead you to believe real or fake?
I'm thinking the dummy at one point is in the air. But I don't know. It's kind of strange that they had the dummy there to begin with. So you're looking at it and wondering what is this on the ground?
I gotcha. Thank you. That's we're really taking this to a good level. We got several folks. Let's see, two guys appear again at the top right away.
When he's flipping around in the air, it looks a little bit unreal.
Okay. And you mentioned momentum. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the momentum and how that would work and what momentum is?
I'm just saying, even though he's coming down the slide, he's not going to have enough momentum to fly off the ramp at that speed. I think he could maybe get up the ramp a little bit if there was still some slip and slide between the two, but there's no way he'd get up all the way and then continue to fly off.
I gotcha. So you think he might get part of the way up the ramp, but he doesn't have enough speed, or you've used the nice scientific term with momentum, extra points for that. Well done. Well said. Okay. Let's see. Several folks have mentioned fake turn, can't account for 4 seconds. Oh, it's like the Zapruder film with the Kennedy assassination. We're behind the sign. We've got the missing couple sections. What happened there? Interesting. And Karen mentioned the skepticalness. Okay. Out of sight for too long. Oh, let's see. And the pool was mentioned as well. Okay, so thank you all who have participated with this. I guess you probably want me to tell you now, is it real or is it fake? Before I do, I will say that the Mythbusters did do a show about this. This video had come out 2009, 2010, somewhere along those lines. So that was when Mythbusters was on the Discovery Channel, and the Mythbusters was a little science, a lot of explosions, but a whole lot of fun too. Was a big fan of that show. So but they tried to do it into a lake, and they determined a lot of what Heather was saying, that they couldn't get enough speed together to be able to perform that kind of jump. And to everyone and most people, I think came down on the side, and well done. But again, even if you didn't, you've put in a guess, you've got skin in the game, so to speak. You've put something out there, and that's what we want students to do, whether it's right or wrong. We really don't care. What we do care is that they've taken a stand, so to speak, and they've got some investment inside the lesson. So, but it is fake, and it was actually an ad for some type of a polyethylene suit, or I'm probably saying that wrong, polypropylene, I think is what I'm trying to say, suit that they were trying to advertise. So, and actually he's hanging onto a cord at the front, and he just goes down part of the way on the ramp, and the rest is CGI a work that was done from 10 years ago, but pretty convincing fake, and especially with the technology standards from 11 years ago. So it is fake. But this gets me thinking about energy. We know that energy is the ability to do some work. And there are a couple different kinds of energy. And scientists call these kinetic energy and potential energy. And I always think about kids. Kim was mentioning her kids, and I always think about kids. They have so much energy, and it's always amazing to see what they will do with harness that energy. And so we see some pictures here of kids where we see kids in their natural state are running. They don't walk anywhere. They're going, especially the little kids are always running from one place to another. So their natural state seems to be with kinetic energy. Kinetic energy is the energy of motion. They are using energy to go from one place to the other. And so this young man here in the middle of our screen is a great example of kinetic energy. He is sprinting across the playground or wherever to get from one place to the another, just with the joy of life there. And this young lady is doing the same thing as well. Whereas this other student here is a great example of potential energy. Potential energy is stored energy. That's energy that we could later put in motion, but energy right now that is not being used. This person has consumed food, which gives them the ability to produce work, to run, to walk, to do whatever, but they have yet to do that. So their energy is stored, waiting to go. So kinetic energy, we're moving. Potential energy, we're not yet moving, but we have the capability, we have the possibility that we could make that work. So roller coasters, I think, are a good place. We saw this ramp, which is kind of like a roller coaster. So let's take a look at a quick video that might help us build a little bit more background information on kinetic versus potential energy. And let's see, we got the sound set already. So as we're watching, let's look and see if we can see what's the difference. Help see a few more examples of kinetic versus potential energy. Here we go.
You may be surprised how much math and physics go into amusement park rides, and more specifically, roller coasters. Common roller coasters don't have an engine, so something has to keep it moving through its fun and intense track. The key to making a roller coaster move is energy. Well, the roller coaster uses a motor to get to the top of the hill. And in the process, it is storing energy for later use, which is called potential energy. Then, you finally get to the top of the hill and gravity pulls you down the track, which increases your acceleration and velocity. This turns the potential energy to kinetic energy. Kinetic is energy that is being used or energy that is caused by motion. The roller coaster goes faster with more kinetic energy being used, which is why the car gets faster towards the bottom of the hill. The change between kinetic energy and potential energy changes throughout the ride. Eventually, the energy turns to friction from wind, the rolling of the wheels, and the brakes on the track. So you can blame friction for stopping the speed and enjoyment of your next roller coaster ride.
Blame it on friction. So this video brings up an interesting question, and that is, when does kinetic energy stop and when does potential energy begin, and vice versa? So let's take a look. This is PBS Learning Media has all kinds of wonderful graphics if you're teaching science related stuff, if you're in your upper level ABE, GED, and this is something pulled from there. This is an interesting thing showing about kinetic versus potential energy, and they're going to continue this analogy with the roller coaster. If you will, before we start this, I want to have you look here in the middle is a circle, and that's going to fill either with blue representing kinetic energy, which is that energy of motion, or it's going to fill with red representing potential energy, energy that's stored up, that's being ready to be used. And watch, if you will, as we do this roller coaster, where we see the different phases with kinetic versus potential. So let's check this out. Are we ready? Okay, here we go. I'm going to play it first, and then I'm going to do playing it with steps so we can kind of see. But watch this circle very carefully so we can see how kinetic and potential energy work together. So that was kind of fast. So let's just see here. So as the coaster is going up the hill, we're just going to do that step. We can see we've got more potential energy. It is moving, but it's really storing. That purpose of going up that first hill is so we could go down those other ones at a much faster rate. So what would we expect here? Would we expect to see more potential or more kinetic as we go downhill? Do one finger if you're expecting to see more kinetic and two for more potential. Okay, so let's see what happens here. So it went down the hill and we really saw the kinetic energy happening there. So now it looks like we're facing a, we're starting to go up another loop. So let's see what happens here with the potential versus kinetic. And again, the blue's kinetic, the red's potential. So it looks like it's still moving, but we're getting some more stored energy because we've got to go and hit these other loops. So we're going to go from 3 to 4, and I'll probably expect to see some changes here. Let's see what happens. Looks like we got some more potential because it's going to come down off that loop. So let's see what happens as it goes from 4 to 5. I'm thinking we'll probably see more kinetic energy since we'll be moving more. Yeah, so we went down fast there. And so we're coming up to a hill. So think about what's going to happen in this hill. What's going to happen to all this kinetic energy as we go up the hill and as we proceed for that last downhill. Yeah, so we're getting some more energy stored. So that can help us to see a little bit about how that works with the kinetic versus potential energy there. So let me go back to the PowerPoint. And so let's reflect a minute about this. This is again just the intro. We would certainly go through a lot more with kinetic versus potential. What are some of the things that we did here, thinking about part A and part B to make this sticky? Either put in the chat, please, or if we want to unmute, what were some sticky elements that we saw here, please? Let's see, Heather, thank you, mentioned video. So we were interested in trying to create a some instant background knowledge. I like those crash course videos that you can find on YouTube for many subjects. They present a good 5 to 10 minutes overview of a lot of subjects. Let's see, Nick mentioned visuals, Nikita mentions predictions. Yeah, because we were doing several predictions at the front end and the back end. Tim mentioned the interactive graphics, thank you. Let's see, Lynn mentions the graphics with Q&A. Kate mentioned the forming and stating opinions. Also fun things. Yeah, I think anytime that we could laugh with the silly YouTube videos, I think that can get us going. Danette mentioned the engage activity with the video and the question, was this real, was this fake? Good stuff. Yeah, and Dwayne was mentioning, how could we make this relevant to real life? And that's always good, and we'll talk more about that. So yeah, thank you for that great comment there. So all these things we put into the beginning to try to make that sticky. And once we've got the learner, once they've been engaged with the story, with the mystery, whatever, that certainly helps to keep them engaged for the long term. So I have another picture that I would like for you, please, to take a look at. And I want you to think about what's happening here. And once again, in the chat box, or if you would like to unmute and say out loud, look very carefully at this picture. Most of the action is especially the left 3/4. We're segueing, we're away from the kinetic and potential energy. We're gonna, take a look at something else. So what is happening here? Take a stab here. And again, please base it on what you see in the picture. I think this is happening because blah, blah, blah. I think this is happening because insert reason here. What's happening here? Okay, so let's see in the chat. The youngsters board got a 60-minute story from Dwayne, studying the board before he makes a move. And Megan, thank you for the, that's a great resource you mentioned about teaching science. Thank you for mentioning that. Let's see here. The boy is giving that guy a run for his money. It's a chess tournament. Telly is asking a question, which I don't know the answer to. I don't follow. I guess it would depend on the rules of the tournament. I don't know. That's an excellent question. Let's see. Nick says it looks like he's not interested in what's going on. Jennifer says he's taking a mind break. Jennifer, if you don't mind unmuting, what exactly is a mind break? What do you mean by that, please?
In some situations you'd have to step away and like with your computer refresh, you need to step back and then because if you're doing something for so long, your focus is not there anymore. Your everything kind of blends together, and it's like stepping away and then coming back, refresh.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. So let's see. He might be digging in his pocket for a soda. He's got a big pocket if that's the case. But I guess he's wearing sweatpants. I guess he could do that there. Let's see. Rhonda saying he's pretty confident that he would win. Well, thank you. Thank you all for those great comments there. This is illustrating a point, and I think Jennifer was very much on target for the point that we were trying to illustrate here. Let me tell you what's going on here. The young man at the left is Magnus Carlsen, who is, I believe he's Norwegian, and he is currently now the world chess champion. The gentleman that he was playing here, he was about, I don't know, 10 or 12 years old. At the time that this picture was taken, I believe he's in his late 20s now. The gentleman that he's playing was Garry Kasparov, who at the time was the world chess champion. And he is taking, as Jennifer has so eloquently stated, he is really taking a mind break here. He may be looking at other matches. He may be just staring off into space. But he's certainly aware of the chess position. He's a fantastic player. He's a world champion. I saw a video of him defeat Bill Gates, the Microsoft former chairman, in 3 moves in a chess game. And Bill Gates is no slouch in the brains department. So he's fully engaged in the game, but he is stepping away, as Jennifer has so eloquently described. He is. This is something else I learned from the Learning How to Learn course. Our brains can operate in 2 different modes. And let me explain this picture before we dive into it. What we're seeing is actually 2 pictures of the brain. If you can see here on the left, one, there's an ear here, and there's an ear here, and there's a nose. So it's like a top view of the brain where the upper part of the brain has been removed, and we are peering inside the brain. So the brain can be in one mode at a time. It can be in the focused mode or in the diffused mode. We cannot be in both modes at the same time. Think about, have you ever had a situation where you were wrestling with a problem and maybe you woke up thinking about it and you went into the shower and you're showering away and suddenly an answer to that problem comes and you're thinking, wow, where did that come from? One thing that I love to do is when I'm wrestling with something, creating something for teaching or whatever, is I like to get up and take a walk and walk around. And I've come up with so many ideas after doing that. Your brain needs both of these modes. Well, what are they? Well, if we can compare, and using analogies again, they're trying to compare, or Barbara Oakley, who created this graphic, is comparing our thoughts to a pinball machine. And so this thing here that looks like a microphone is the bumper of the pinball, and the thoughts are these represented by the red lines. And in the focused mode, we are thinking very deeply and very carefully about a particular subject. We're paying really close attention as we're trying to learn this particular thing. And to quote from Barbara Oakley, she says, you must focus intently on it in order to turn on the parts of the brain that get that learning process started. And we make trails, so to speak, in our brains as we are doing this. And that helps us to remember these things long term. The diffuse mode, on the other hand, that Magnus Carlsen was in that picture, is a little bit different. The mind is not really focusing as intently on that problem. And it's during those times where we're consolidating and the brain is taking that information and forming those new pathways. And it's really a way of heavy duty creativity pops up in the diffuse mode. Notice, to use that pinball analogy, notice that the thought bumpers are a little bit further away than they are inside the focus mode. There's more space in between them, and that allows the thoughts to travel more wide range. So as we're learning, as we're teaching, a lot of times we're expecting our students to be in that focus mode. And we talked in part A about the absorb. When we're in the absorb mode, we're inside that focused mode. But we need time in the diffuse mode. And that's also why we suggested with the ADC loop that we're doing also do and connect activities that help that consolidation, because the brain can be in only one of these modes. These pennies are here because it's two sides of the same coin. Our brain cannot be in the focus mode at the same time it's in the diffuse mode. So using analogies again, like a pinball machine, two sides of the same coin, all those will help to make that more memorable. So this gentleman is Thomas Alva Edison, and this is a statue of him at Menlo Park in New Jersey. And you'll notice something very interesting inside his left hand. He's holding a cane in his right hand, but in his left hand, it looks like he's got some round metallic object, and he does. He used to keep ball bearings in his pocket. And so he would spend, wrestling with something. What am I going to do to create the light bulb? What filament is going to work that's going to make the light bulb work? And so he used to lay down. You see a picture of him. He says the comment, tearing off a nap after 72 straight hours of working. Man, that is pretty amazing. But he would try to get in a semi-drowsy state, and he would keep those ball bearings so that when he fell asleep, they would clatter on the floor and wake him up. But he would try to get in that, that drowsy state, and that's where he had all his great ideas. And he was, Thomas Alva Edison was no slouch in the brains department. 1,093 patents. But when he was a kid, he would have been one of our students in adult ed, because his teachers in school said he is too stupid to learn everything. He's too stupid to learn anything. His mom pulled him out of school and taught him at home. He would have ended up, most likely, had adult ed been around then like it is today, he would have been one of our students. But he was a master at using the diffuse mode to really help him through. And he still ranks in the top 10 of lifetime patents, even all this time later after his death. So what do we have here back in our mystery here? What's happening here is Magnus Carlsen, the young man here in the left, is using the diffuse mode. Instead of staring intently at the game, he's thinking, okay, what's my next move going to be? But he realizes, as Jennifer so eloquently stated earlier, he realizes that he needs to get away. He realizes that he needs to think about, this is his move into the shower, so to speak, to get those good ideas. So that's pretty amazing. Dr. Oakley described brains as hiker brains or race car brains. The race car brains is the brain that very quickly can move from topic to topic to topic. And I think that K-12 instruction really focuses a lot on the students with the race car brain. The hiker brain, by contrast, needs to hike. It needs to move around. It needs to take some time to think and digest information. But a lot of times our learning in K-12, and I'm not, if you're teaching K-12, I'm no offense intended. I think it's just the system that is involved with it. in the we're always trying to pass the end of course test or the standardized test or whatever is always the big focus, that the curriculum and memorizing this information to spit it back on the end of grade test. And so that really goes with the race car brain. 9 times 8, 72, 6 times 4, memorizing those facts and being able to spit those out. But not all our students' brains work that way. And I think in our adult ed classrooms, well, I know in our adult ed classrooms, we've got a lot more of the hiker brains, those students that need that processing time, that aren't going to be able to answer 9 times 8 is 72 in 2/10 of a second, but they need more of that processing time. And so doing the ADCs that we talked about will really help those students who come into our classrooms with the hiker brain and are not, ready to really answer that, the the trivia question really quickly. So these are some good things to keep in mind that's going to make learning stick. I alluded to community a little bit during part A, but if you join me on page 6, please, of the handout, we can see some other things. We really need community. And when we talked about doing connect activities and absorb, do, connect, learning in community really helps to do that. And we have discovered learning is social. How many horror stories have we heard, or how many students have now entered our adult ed program? I remember Kim mentioning this when we talked a few weeks ago about the number of students that have dropped out because of being forced to do the online learning and it's not working out for them, and wanting to come to our adult ed programs. Community does matter. And I've mentioned several different community things that we can do in order to help learning stick. And one thing that I love to do is an activity called always, sometimes, or never. And how we do that is very simple. Put up a statement in whatever content area that you're studying, and you just ask your students, is this always true? Is this sometimes true? Is this never true? And then, of course, put a why behind it as well. And I've done this face-to-face with writing on the board, always, sometimes, never, and getting students to stand up and walk and place themselves under that sign. And you could certainly do it if you're teaching virtually as well, ask the students. But let's go ahead and do this. A bill vetoed by the president will not become law. That's the statement. So if you would answer, please, in the chat or unmute, either that this is always true, this is sometimes true, or this is never true. A bill vetoed by the president will not become law. So please chat and answer. Looks like sometimes is getting a lot of the publicity here. I think sometimes has, let's see here. Oh, Jennifer's, what folks are putting in, mentioned if you can't remember something, the harder you try, the harder it is. Very true. If you stop thinking about it, it may pop randomly into your mind. So very, very true, and a great example of the diffuse mode there. So looks like folks went to sometimes, and that is, the folks who said sometimes, that is very, very true, because we could have situations where Congress might override the veto, which is very difficult to do. You need a lot of votes to make that happen, but it is possible. It could be that the president would say, well, I'll pass it if you'll make these changes, and the bill comes back in modified form. So thank you for all those who said sometimes. But I love always, sometimes, never, because students will talk sometimes about their answers and get them to do that. Talk then write is also something we can do in a community building activity that you see at page 6. And I'm going to ask you to do this. If you're there by yourself, this will be easy to do. But I just want you to talk about what you're seeing, talk out loud about what you're seeing. And then if you want to put something, please, in the chat about what you're seeing, and then I'll tell you the rest of the story about this picture. So I'll give you a minute here to talk about what you're seeing. And this is something with a group we could talk with, have multiple people talking, and then write just a brief phrase. What are we seeing? I'm not going to say anything about this picture beyond the fact that you may have seen it before. So what are we doing? just talk out loud about what you're seeing. And then if you would, just put down one sentence that kind of summarizes what we're seeing inside this picture. But talk out loud first. It's priming the brain, and I'll be quiet to allow you to do that.
Sorry, is the picture in the handout or would it be on your screen?
I'm sorry, you're not seeing it. So let me, oh, I'm sorry. Okay. It's hard to see. Oh, that's right. Okay. My share disappeared. I'm sorry. Thank you for pointing that out.
No, I do that all the time.
Just goes to show I only make mistakes when I'm conscious and breathing. Okay. You probably can see it a whole lot better now. Yeah. So talk about what you're seeing. I see people's lips moving, so that's good. And then just a brief sentence in the chat box.
Pure joy.
Thank you. Let's see, Heather uses ecstatic. Nice use of the word ecstatic. See, excited use. A family reunited. Let's see, Dwayne might have some more information about this. Let's see, kids and spouse alike. Soldier coming home. Kate's guessing it's Vietnam. Reunited. I'm thinking about that old song, but I'm not going to sing it. All right, and Tim's saying it's a Vietnam era photo, and I wonder why he's saying that. Tim, what leads you to believe it's Vietnam era? He knows the story. Okay, thank you. Oh, the clothing styles. Yeah. Although fashion is kind of cyclical too. But anyway, so thank you for all who did that. Talk then right. And several folks, and Dwayne and Tim nailed it right on the money. This is a photograph. It's someone who mentioned Joy, that unmuted and said Joy, who I didn't catch who it was. This photograph is entitled Burst of Joy, and it was taken in March of 1973. This Vietnam War was ramping down, and as part of the peace negotiations, the North Vietnamese let American POWs, prisoners of war, come back to the States. And this particular gentleman had been imprisoned, I think since 1967. So he'd been gone from his family for 6 years. And you can see the joy on the faces of these young folks. There's more to the story, though. 2 days before he landed back at this Air Force base, his wife sent him a Dear John letter that basically said, our marriage is over. So that was kind of the, I love the picture, but the story behind it is not nearly as good. But this poor young wife who never, didn't know for a while whether her husband was alive or dead, had decided to move on with her life. And so the gentleman, the former prisoner of war, said he can't look at the picture, kind of feels half-hearted about it because of the Dear John letter that he received prior to this. But history, always very fascinating. So couple of things that we could do. March 17th, 1973. Oh, we got our South Dakota trivia before we do our last part. So one thing that not a lot of people know that are non-South Dakota natives was how long that Laura Ingalls Wilder spent in South Dakota, the famous Little House on the Prairie author. And actually, I think they spent more time, a lot more time in South Dakota than they did in other places where they lived. But so our trivia is this, and please put this in the chat. Laura Ingalls Wilder and her husband Almanzo, their 2 children were born in which South Dakota town? Was it Aberdeen? Was it Wall? I want to go get a donut at Wall. Was it Mitchell or was it De Smet? I just like to say De Smet. That's pretty cool. De Smet. Let's say, whoops. Let's see, it looks like D is getting the early going. So folks may have been to the homestead there. Okay, so.
Just down the road.
Just down the road. All right. All right. And as most folks have said there, I think everybody who participated put it in there, De Smet is the correct answer. And you can see there the historical marker marking Rose Wilder Lane's birthplace. They had also another child that died in infancy, as happened so many times during that time. So question, and we're on page 7 if you want to shift there. We're going to close with one thing that has changed the way I work, and I hope that you can use it either personally or with your students. And that is the Pomodoro technique, which we're on page 7 of the handout. So the question I have for you, if you were a runner and you knew you were going to run a marathon, would you do all your training runs the day before the marathon? Shake your head yes if you would. Shake your head no if you wouldn't. Okay. I see head shaking no. And you certainly wouldn't do that. You'd want to space these out. And Rhonda says, no. Okay, I'm with you. You would not do that. You want to space these out. And learning's the same way. We need to space out learning practice. And our students are a lot of times are bad about doing this because I think there's several reasons. I think one, many times they've never been taught, we say, you know, like study something, but they've never been taught how to study and how that means, or they may have been taught it, but it just may never have stuck, is one reason. Or, oh, I studied for a test once and I didn't pass, so I'm never going to do it again. But it's really important with the way our brain works to space out learning practice. It's critical to do this. But we face a very big foe in attempting to do this. And the big foe is procrastination. In other words, putting things off until later. Why do today what you can put off until tomorrow is the procrastinator's motto. And I like to think that historically, I put the pro in procrastination here. I was terrible with procrastination, and I never understood why I procrastinated until fairly recently. But our brain being what it is, and it's trying to protect us, the brain avoids pain and the brain seeks pleasure. That's one part of its job. It's going to avoid pain and it's going to seek pleasure. And a lot of times studying that we have to do, or work, or Kim's thinking about, oh, I got to write this funding proposal, blah, blah, blah. This is painful. And I don't know that I really want to do this. And your administrators are thinking, oh, I've got to write my funding proposal, or I've got to write this grant, and blah, blah, blah. These things are all painful. So our brain says, what can we do instead of this painful task? So I love the social media escape habit loop. There's always a cue with procrastination, and that could be, oh, work is hard. I don't want to plan this lesson. I don't want to do blah, blah, blah. So the cue, the brain says, pain, 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 pain. I must do something else. So this leads to another behavior like, oh, well, I could check social media. I can go on Twitter. I could check Facebook. I could go to LinkedIn or whatever. And it always rewards us. Oh, look, there's 8 notifications. We can find out what Kim's having for dinner tonight. Oh, this is great. So that's the reward that's built into the social media escape habit loop. So how do we defeat this? Page 7 there in your handout. What we want to try to do, what we want to do is set process goals instead of product goals. What are we talking about? Well, a product goal is completing a task. In other words, we want to do this funding proposal, or we want to write this lesson. Where process is, we are going to work for a particular period of time. And you can see that outlined on the middle of page 7 of the handout. The brain's pain sensors are triggered by product goals. So if we're trying to write this thing or do this thing, immediately the cue says, uh-oh, painful, I am going to go into my escape loop, whatever that might look like. So, but a process goal is not pain triggering. Paul Smith, you are too funny. So Anyway, so what we want to try to do is set a process goal instead of a product goal. And one thing that has really changed the way I work is the Pomodoro technique. It's called that because it's named, I think Pomodoro is Italian for tomato, and it's a tomato timer, is how this particular technique got started. So how does it work? Bottom of page 7. Set a time, and the experts say we should do a 25-minute time period. And then once you've worked for 25 minutes on whatever task, you can stop and give yourself a couple-minute break, and then do another 25-minute session and do a longer break, or if you want to do several of these. But what the Pomodoros allow us to do is space out learning. And it also builds in more of that diffuse mode situation. So this has really, for me personally, changed the way I work. So looking at this in action, I have a timer on my computer, and I've done it as 25 minutes and 32 seconds. I don't know why, that's just the way my brain works, but set it for 25 minutes. And you'll notice if you look in the middle of the screen, there's the to-do pad I was using at the time. And you noticed I was working on a presentation for COABE at the time, and you've noticed it says COABE 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it says links. I work as the moderator of the links reading and writing community. So I decide how many Pomodoros I'm going to do for that particular task or that particular part that day. And so I will check off these as I do them. And I try to set a goal of when to stop work, and that 4:30 never happens, but I will continue to try to set that and hope that it maybe will someday, and some other things that I was doing that particular day. And you can see that at the result of that, I ended up doing several Pomodoros for COABE, and then some other things happened, and I didn't quite meet my 4:30 goal, but it was close with 5:05. And that's the way I do work now, and it works so much better because a lot of times you're creating a PowerPoint for a teaching situation. That takes a long time, and that's a pain trigger for me. But I can say, well, I can work 25 minutes on it. Oh, the timer goes off. I can work another 25 minutes on it, and it's not painful. And so tell this technique with your students, because a lot of times that studying they put off because it's painful, but say, I can study for 25 minutes, and explain some study techniques as well about, creating flashcards or whatever technique that you want to have them do for whatever it is that you're learning or teaching. But it is so much less painful. And I found personally, since I started doing this, a year and a half ago, I am so much more productive in these long-term tasks that I used to put off before the day before something was due. I now do get them done a whole lot sooner because 25 minutes isn't painful, and it allows me to complete these tasks. So it has been, at least work-wise, life-changing. And one other thing about that, the frog, eat your frog first is a saying, but the frog is the most difficult or most challenging task. So I try to put, the morning is my peak time. So I try to put those, real difficult, real heavy duty thinking tasks, researching tasks first thing. So I have my best brain power in order to do this. So, Pomodoro technique, really helpful for spacing out learning. If you're a procrastinator, this can really help you.
I'm doing good.
I'm sorry, did someone start to say something?
On when?
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. As we get ready to close, I know we've got just a second. Well, we got a couple minutes here, but take a second and reflect. What was something that we learned either in part A or part B that reinforced something good that you're already doing? Are you already using some of these sticky elements? What was something that reminded you of something maybe you used to do and will try again? What's something that gave you a new idea that you planned to try? So take a minute and reflect. You don't have to do chat box unless you want to, but just take a minute, think over, take a look at the handout. What did you find especially helpful? What did you find especially meaningful? And we'll do a wanted to say a moment of silence, but that always doesn't sound good. The moment of silence sounds like, oh. We'll take a silent moment to reflect. That sounds better. Let's see, there was a couple things in the chat. Danette mentioned might a shorter span work with some of our students that are reluctant to study. Yes, a goal of 50. Yeah, and I think building up to that is a great practice, and I think that would work well, Danette. 25 minutes may be something to work up to, and maybe too long for some students. I agree with you. I think that would be good. Let's see, Kate. I'm actually a Michigan native, but I've lived in North Carolina since 1984.
Okay, thanks. I heard a Southern accent. I had to know. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I always said, well, coming from Michigan, I always said I was from the Midwest, but you say in South Dakota that you're from the Midwest. So you're from a further west Midwest than I was from. Yeah, Lynn, and thank you for your great comment there. Yeah, the timer could definitely be effective. Good stuff. But just wanted to say thank you. It has been my absolute joy to be with you here for both part A and part B, and really appreciate all of the good thoughts in the chat. And thank you for everyone who unmuted and participated. There's, I hope that you'll find this information helpful going forward and be able to employ this in your teaching, and hope that you got some reinforcement today and that you found some things that you're already doing, and give yourself a pat on the back and say, hey, I've been starting lessons with mysteries for years. I'm glad to see that there's some research base behind this. But thank you all so much. Thank you, Nancy. And yeah, please send me that German dessert that I will mispronounce its name.
You're not a good German if you don't know Kuchen.
I guess I only have the German name, I'm afraid.
I don't think you can claim it if you don't know Kuchen. All right. Thank you, Stephen, for your time today. We all appreciate that. We do need to do our spin the wheel. And because I get crackling if I do it with the audio on, I did it already. And the winner for this session is Judy Eason. And I know I seen her on, so Judy, watch your email.
I'm here.
I knew you were. I seen you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Steve, thanks for your time. And the rest of you have a good rest of your day. There is one more session if you'd like to visit that, coming up in 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, everyone.